our next two short lectures. And I would like everybody to be seated so that we start. And today is the third day of our Congress. And I think as we move along, we might be losing sight of the theme of the Congress. Now, I would like to remind ourselves that the theme is universal brotherhood without distinction, a road to awareness. As we move along, we should keep it in our background so that we don't forget it. This afternoon, we have two personalities to treat two subjects for us. And I would like to introduce them. The first to start is Miss Mary Anderson. Miss Anderson is a native of Scotland. She graduated at St. Andrews University with an MA honors degree in French and German, and worked for a short time as a teacher, and then a translator, and finally as a trilingual secretary in Basel, Switzerland, where she lived for almost 40 years. She became acquainted with theosophy as a child and has been a TS member for about 55 years. She served as General Secretary of the Swiss section for 6 years and as Secretary of the European Federation for more than 30 years. She lived for 13 years at the international headquarters of the Society in Adia in India, where she served for 6 years as international president and for a further 6 years as international secretary. She has now retired to England, where she lives, and has become a life member of the English section. She has lectured and given courses in English, French, and German, and in different parts of the world, and hopes to continue to do so for so many years. Of course, when I was in Adia in 2007, she was the international secretary, and I interacted with her a lot, so I know what she's able to do. Ms. Anderson, her topic is, "The beginning is my end." It's a very interesting topic, and I think we should all be ears to listen how she's going to deliver it. Ms. Anderson, yes.
Friends, I am tempted to say friends, Romans, countrymen. Those who know Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, we are countrymen in a way. We're all related, and many Romans are here. Friends, Romans, countrymen. The title of this talk, "In My Beginning is My End," is a quotation from T.S. Eliot's East Coker. By the way, the motto of Mary, Queen of Scots, was, "In my end is my beginning." You can perhaps guess from this title what I intend to say. The theme of the Congress is Universal Brotherhood, a Road to Awareness. Equally, I maintain we might say awareness, a road to universal brotherhood. This point was mentioned briefly this morning by one of the speakers, actually. Another and similar quotation, this time from T.S. Eliot's Little Gidding, runs, "The end is where we start from. So shall we start from the end?" In other words, shall we reflect on awareness as the beginning and universal brotherhood without distinction as the end? The beginning of any undertaking is usually recognized as important. To quote the German poet Rilke, "There is magic in every new beginning." A friend of mine told me that as a teenager, when she was beginning a new phase in her life, perhaps going to university or starting a job, her grandmother told her what is essential is to make a good beginning. This advice had impressed her, and she tried to follow it all her life. Why might the beginning of any action or any path one follows in life be important? Might it not involve our motive, the original reason for our action, the spirit in which we undertake anything? At the same time, it may indicate the direction in which we shall proceed. If our goal is what we perhaps consider truly spiritual, but our motive, our whole attitude, and therefore our starting point is selfish, we start off on the wrong foot, and we proceed in the direction of self-interest and not in a spiritual direction. On the other hand, if our motive is truly unselfish, philanthropic, spiritual, we shall follow the path that leads to love, philanthropy, universal brotherhood without distinction. It was Lord Buddha's sympathetic awareness of human suffering, his solidarity with the whole of mankind, that set him on the path leading to the alleviation of that suffering. And thus also, in the voice of the silence, the golden key to the first portal on the sevenfold path, that path analogous to the raft leading to the other shore, is Dana, the key of charity and love immortal. What has love to do with awareness? Let us consider little children. Have we observed a little child playing, absorbed in a doll or a toy train? Is the child not happy and loving? I always remember the expression on the face of a little girl on the lap of a friend of mine when she tasted a strawberry for the first time in her life. The surprise, the wonder, the revelation on her features, her awareness. There is a movement you perhaps know in the order of service in England called Teddies for Tragedy. Volunteers knit teddy bears, which are sent to sick children in third world countries. I quote, "Doctors who treat children in third world countries have found that children who have their own teddy to cuddle in their cots get better quicker than those who don't have one. Each child keeps their own teddy and can take it home." You can purchase such a teddy bear in the shop, the TOS shop. I'll show you here. Another example of awareness is the scholar or the scientist who has a problem to solve. He or she may puzzle over the problem, give it full attention, be aware of nothing else. This does not always result in the solution of the problem becoming clear, but after first of all concentrating and then turning aside, relaxing, perhaps going for a walk or going to sleep, the solution may present itself. Has the problem been handed over to the subconscious? Did rest and relaxation bring the solution to the surface? Did not the original awareness play an important part? A similar example is the Zen monk struggling with his koan. A koan, most of you probably know, is an apparently nonsensical situation or statement into which the monk goes ever deeper until a solution may be found, which may not appear to be a solution at all. A well-known koan, I'm sure many of you are familiar with it, is the following. A young goose was put into a bottle. The goose grew and could not be extracted from the bottle without the goose being harmed or the bottle being broken. What is the solution? The solution may be that actually the goose never was in the bottle in the first place. There's no need for a logical solution. What matters is that the monk has been deeply aware of the problem. But what is that awareness that might lead in the direction of universal brotherhood without distinction? Might we say that this is spiritual awareness? What does spirituality mean? Does it not have to do with the oneness of all life? From the spiritual point of view, there is only one. According to Madame Blavatsky, the first basic idea which our mind should hold fast is the fundamental unity of all existence. Existence is one thing. There is but one being. And is this not the principle behind the universal brotherhood of humanity? Universal, that is all-embracing, unlimited, unbounded. But let us consider an example of spiritual awareness from one who had experienced it, Krishnamurti. I quote, "I had the first most extraordinary experience. There was a man mending the road. That man was myself. The pickaxe he held was myself. The very stone which he was breaking up was a part of me. The tender blade of grass was my very being, and the tree beside the man was myself. I could almost feel and think like the road maker, and I could feel the wind sighing through the tree, and the little ant on the blade of grass I could feel. The birds, the dust, and the very noise were part of me. Just then, there was a car passing by at some distance. I was the driver, the engine, and the tires. As the car went further away from me, I was going away from myself. I was in everything, or rather, everything was in me, inanimate and animate, the mountain, the worm, and all breathing things." And the conclusion, "I was supremely happy, for I had seen. Nothing could ever be the same. I have drunk at the clear and pure waters at the source of the fountain of life, and my thirst was appeased. Never more could I be thirsty. Never more could I be in utter darkness. I have seen the light. I have touched compassion, which heals all sorrow and suffering. It is not for myself, but for the world." What better expression of awareness and compassion opening the door to universal brotherhood? Universal brotherhood is not an abstraction. People sometimes talk of humanity as an abstract concept. Perhaps politicians often do. Here, we may quote the wise words of William Blake. "He who would do good to others must do it in minute particulars. General good is the plea of the scoundrel, the hypocrite, and the flatterer." Rather strong words, but worthwhile thinking about. But awareness from moment to moment should not and cannot be an abstraction, nor should universal brotherhood be an abstraction for us, but should blossom from time to time in the circumstances of our daily life. Again, Krishnamurti illustrated this point in an incident recorded in his, I think it was in his biography by Pupul Jayakar. I record reading it. He was discussing with friends, and he asked them, how would one help a dying man who was afraid? Perhaps afraid of what death held in store for him, or afraid about how his loved ones would survive without his support. Some of those present suggested that this dying man, full of fear, should be told or reminded of reincarnation, of karma, etc. But Krishnamurti rejected these suggestions. He said that he would hold the dying man's hand and tell him that he understood him. He understood his fear. He himself also knew fear. It is incidents like this that illustrate awareness and also brotherhood without distinction. We cannot shut anyone out of our awareness, just as we cannot shut anyone out of universal brotherhood. Let us return to our title, "In my end is my beginning." Taking the end as the beginning, we might assume that they are in a way simultaneous. In other words, where there is true awareness, there is universal brotherhood. In true awareness, we would embrace everything that comes our way without distinction. In a sense, we are one with all other human beings, even with all other beings. And if we live universal brotherhood, we are aware of all human beings and of all beings that come our way. Such awareness was constantly experienced, as far as I can see, by Krishnamurti. When he heard of the unexpected death of his brother Nityananda, he suffered agony for 10 days. But he emerged from this state with the realization, my brother and I are one. Mar Demansiarli, meeting him on his return to Adyar, said that Krishnamurti's face was radiant. He was with his beloved brother all the time. That is awareness, and it is brotherhood. Does not true awareness, as Krishnamurti experienced it, feeling himself one with every blade of grass, lead to the very heart of all things, all beings? In other words, to universal brotherhood without distinction? And universal brotherhood without distinction implies, I think, awareness. That is the experience of universal brotherhood. The oneness of all life is, as you know, the fundamental teaching of theosophy. And certainly, all theosophists subscribe to that teaching, I think. But it should not be just an idea, a theory, an ideal, but an actual experience in our consciousness, an experience of awareness, of oneness. Then it will express itself not only in our thoughts, but also in our feelings, our convictions, and our actions. Thus, can we not say that universal brotherhood and awareness are inextricably linked, and that universal brotherhood is a road to awareness, and awareness is a road to universal brotherhood? In such a case, end and beginning are one. Thank you very much.